make it there and can make it back.
Salutations and shit, folks. Welcome back to another episode of your favorite travel podcast, Travel and Shit, where I, your host, D. Carey, have an experiential conversation about the nuanced ways that travel intersects with regular life. Happy Caesar Salad Day. This episode is going to air on the 4th of July, but apparently way long time ago, Caesar salads were created, invented, discovered, found, combined, whatever, on this day, and that is the holiday I personally choose to celebrate. So to you and yours, happy Caesar Salad Day. Into this week's episode, y'all. I think, and I would like to hope that by now y'all have learned to love when I fall down a rabbit hole, because it happens quite often. This week's rabbit hole, reality TV around the world. So, shout out to Netflix. One of these days, I'm speaking this into existence. One of these days, there's going to be a partnership with Netflix, because the programming, there have been so many really interesting shows. And I think what about Netflix for me is that somehow it's quite easy for me to track, I guess, the stats and the ratings of other countries. It's easier to Google, or you can just search Netflix based on what's popular globally as opposed to just locally, right? So I don't remember what it was. Somehow reality TV came up. And so I said, well, what are the people watching around the world? So there'll be, I think, at least 3 links in the description box. Initially, when I started producing this episode, if you will, I thought that I was going to watch an episode of 3 of the number 1 reality shows from different regions, right? Like, I was going to do the number one show from, say, South Africa. I was going to do the number 1 show in Japan, and maybe the number 1 show in Italy. Couldn't do it. Absolutely could not do it. They're all about fucking love or sex or relationships. They're all some variation of Love Island or Love is Blind, or, just the love and the sex. Not really my bag. Love is Blind was the last, I guess, love, sex, relationship reality show that I watched. And I only watched this most recent season because of AD and Clay. I just kept hearing about it on Twitter, and I was intrigued. So and also, there's something to watching things as a collective, being up to date with, let's take Abbott Elementary. Every week when we've got a new guest appearance, or when something happens between Janine and Gregory and the timeline is on it. It takes me back to Scandal Thursdays, Shondaland, what was it? Shondaland? Did they call it Shondaland? But Shonda Thursdays, where if Friday morning came and you hadn't caught up, or even that Thursday evening prior, you were going to get the spoilers. And so there is something to community watch, group watch, that is to be enjoyed. Anyway, I watched Love is Blind specifically for that reason. Otherwise, I am not invested. I don't follow The Bachelor, The Bachelorette. I don't really watch reality TV at all, period, except for, because I feel like I do. There are so many different programs that are unofficially reality TV. Because remember, there was reality TV where we would just follow people around with cameras, but then there's also the reality TV that has a scripted aspect to it. But anyway, so the travel aspect, I couldn't get into all the love and the relationships and all that shit. So I said, I'm just going to find the most interesting shows, because I wasn't going to bore myself. I just did not see that being sustainable. So I just found the shows that looked the most interesting to me. and from different regions. And I said, all right, well, I'll pick the most interesting one from different countries. The first one that I came across was like the Real Housewives of Bollywood, because after listening to Dustin on the Friend Zone consistently every week, his segment is reality TV. He really does a great job of intriguing me, if you will, about the housewives. And my grandparents used to religiously watch Real Housewives of Atlanta. So I said, all right, let me see if I can get into a housewife show. Couldn't do it. There was another one that was there was one, I think it was called Saving My Marriage in South Africa. Baby, I did not even finish the first episode. Couldn't do it. It was, it felt as if, this is me, my personal opinions, this American girl, it felt like these men brought absolutely nothing to the table. I don't think a single one of them was attractive to me. Um, Beautiful wives. Um, and it just felt as if the women were kind of just, well, this is married life. And they were there on the show because obviously they wanted maybe something to change, but like in like the way that they were introducing themselves, and you were kind of getting to meet like the couples, and it was like, what? I'm not interested in sitting through this either. Didn't want to trauma watch. Couldn't do it. But finally came across. And this shit was such a beautiful happenstance because the title of it was in Portuguese. I ended up stumbling across this Brazilian show called Stranded with My Mother-in-Law, or Stuck with My Mother-in-Law. Y'all, this shit is so good. This show was fucking cinema. It was so well done, and it was well done on multiple levels. And I even bring this up because, and I'll start with the why in the beginning and probably reinforce it at the end. But travel, I tell y'all, every week is so much more than vacation. If you're a new traveler, I hope that this theory, this idea of even leaning into like a show, whether it be a reality show, the most popular movie, most popular television show that isn't a reality show, but like a scripted show, I hope it gives you a mini insight into how people actually live, right? Because you could Google something, you can find YouTubes, you can find social media accounts. There's so many different ways to have a peek into cultures, customs, and, even colloquialisms, just little things about different cultures before you even get there. And if you've already been there before, I've never been to Brazil, but if you've already been there before, there's always something you missed, or there's always something that didn't necessarily stand out to you on your visit, because you're there as a tourist and not necessarily as someone that lives there. But there is so much to be gathered just from seeing how other people from other cultures interact with each other. Not even necessarily how they live, but just how they interact with other people. One of the really cute things that I didn't expect to necessarily be so tickled by was the little colloquialisms that people say in other countries. I think I wrote it in my notes app and not in Notion. Hey, Notion, I am a fan. Is this? No, that's the wrong note. I'm trying to see, because there was one of them that was so good. And I know I wrote it completely out. Is this it? It's about Walker. This is skincare. This is ideas. Previous 7 days today. No, not going to be today, right? Oh, here's go. It was okay. So one of the characters said, "Not all I think is worth saying. That's why our tongue is inside our mouths." Um, I'm sure it sounds like so much more poetic in Portuguese. And there was something else that was mentioned, and it was kind of like, don't put your cart before the horse. Well, the cart does. Oh no, the horse goes before the cart. Don't put. You know how you say, at least in America, in the States, don't put your cart before the horse. Right? It was something, may not be similar to that, but that type of a phrase, and it was just like, oh, that was so cute. I'd never heard that before because I watched it dubbed. That was another thing that I'll get to. But there is so much to be gathered, to be learned, if you will, by watching people of other cultures interact with each other. And I was this whole just watch, and it's only 8 episodes. I have to do a deep dive to see if there is someplace a reunion show because I would love to see a reunion show. Um, but there is so much value to me in being a couch traveler, if you will. A lot of times let's just theoretically put travelers into two boxes, right? The people that have never been anywhere and the people that have been plenty of wheres. You've just traveled, you've been all around the world, whether it's the same 4 countries, the same 40 countries, whatever. People that have never left and want to travel, and people who have traveled. People that have never left sometimes are looking for inspiration to go someplace. You want to know what people in other places are like. Whatever your reason for not traveling, whether it be a fear that you haven't been able to identify or name or work through yet, whether it be financial resources, whether it be time, whether it be familial, whatever your thing is that has kept you here, even though you want to be there, and everywhere, and you want to travel, consider being a couch traveler. See the world through your TV, the subscriptions that you're paying for, the content that you consume on social media and in other places on the internet. Consider looking into what people in other countries are doing. It's right there in front of you. You want to travel, you don't gotta leave yet. Look into, oh, well, I don't know where I'm gonna go. Let's see who's got interesting shit going on. Let's see who's got something that I may be interested in seeing. You never know what movie or what television show will spark your interest, whether it be because of destination, location, or a particular storyline or place that's visited. I know that I particularly am very excited to visit Eugene, Oregon, because of a series that I was reading a few years back. I think the author's name is L.J. Sellers, and I really heavily got into her Detective Jackson series. I think I read like 5 of the books or so. Um, Real easy reads, cute, quick, entertaining as fuck. And they're all set in Oregon. And the main character is based in Eugene. And so after reading all of those books, tickled to find out it was a real town. I want to say Willamette. I was listening to another podcast, Park Predators with Delia D'Ambra. Hey, y'all on Audio Chuck. I love Audio Chuck programming for the most part. They've got some really great podcasts if you are looking for other things to listen to. They are the parent company that does Crime Junkie, which is also one of my favorite podcasts. But Delia was saying Willamette. And all these years, I've been pronouncing it Willamette. I trust her production team and the research she's done, and I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Willamette. Or it could just be one of those tomato things. Anyway, but then you got the travelers that have been places. Sometimes it gets really boring just talking about, well, some people, it doesn't matter to them and they'll keep talking about it anyway. But sometimes it gets kind of boring when you are just consistently talking about, oh, I went here and I saw this and I did that. And, oh, and, people may or may not ask, like, well, how was your trip? Or, you want to talk about going someplace, but it's kind of like, do I want to tell the same story about Rome? Or is there anything that do I even want to share everything that I did in this location? Sometimes you want to talk about travel without necessarily talking about like where you've been. You can talk about travel by talking about shit that you're interested in because you watched X show, or you know what, this is similar to my experience, or I didn't have this experience, or this reminds me of something that happened in another fucking country. Like, there are so many ways to talk about travel, and I really hope that and travel and shit has kind of opened up that little box for you to expand your travel conversations. Include some TVs if you must. So, the show is very, very well done. And it is one of those things that you slowly start to unfold, like you start to see it unfold. By the end of the first episode, it was like, oh, bitch, this is going to be good. So the premise of the show is these couples go on this television, like this reality show where they think that they are going to be competing for, I think it's, I think the currency is like rupees or something with an R, I want to say. But like $500,000, which I think is in US dollars, like 80 or $90,000 or something like that. But the couples are going to live off some like deserted island in Brazil or whatever. And they are competing for this money. There are six couples. The first day, paradise. It's beautiful. Love it here. Woo. Then they get to the first, I don't want to say obstacle, but the first challenge, if you will. And surprise, they actually have to paddle in a raft to retrieve a package from the water. There's like a, not a barge, but like there's a little deck, makeshift deck that's set up. And on this deck, the packages are actually their moms. So of each couple, there is one mother. So there are six couples, one mother. The show is Stranded with my mother-in-law. And of course, they did a beautiful job of curating a group of couples who have broken, fractured, or non-existent, if you will, relationships between one of the people in the relationship and the mother-in-law. So all these people, for the most part, are married couples, and they didn't know that their moms were going to be there. So, okay, first plot twist. Woo, this is great. We're gonna just see our moms. Love you. You're part of the competition. This was cute. And so after they do the first competition, and then the host is like, all right, so, we're gonna be sending, we're going home. Everybody say goodbye. It's time for, bed or whatever. They say goodbye. And plot twist again, the moms are staying, and plot twist again, not with their kids. So whomever the actual child to the mother is separated. And so now you're stuck with your mother-in-law. So it's the mom and their child's spouse that they do not get along with. Now, I don't know if the moms knew this was going to happen. I feel like they did, but baby, the kids did not. One thing about the show is I feel like they didn't necessarily put people's ages on blast. I know for all the American reality shows that I've seen, for the most part, especially in this era, like from like the early 2000s, we I don't think we I don't think we had ages on the screen at all. Like when they put the character's name, I feel like ages are more of like a now of things. But I don't necessarily know how old all the couples are. I have an idea of like what ages some of them may be near after watching and hearing some of them say about their ages. But baby, this shit was nuts. And so there are three housing situations. There's rustic, there's basic, and there's VIP. Rustic, they are literally sleeping on the floor. There is a mat, like I know there's a word for it, like the pallet that it's called, but like you basically sleep on like a very thin mattress on the fucking floor. You have to shower outside, cold water. Like I feel like the shower, like they had them showering in bathing suits, so I feel like there may not have even been a cover. Not fun. Then the basic is okay, you're actually on a bed. You have a bathroom that is attached to your housing, but it's basic, cute, but basic. And then VIP is, of course, a VIP setting. One thing that I noticed is that they didn't necessarily do like a tour of the place to necessarily show what made it VIP or distinguished it from the other locations, but you know, that's where the top two teams, performing teams went. The middle two teams and then the bottom two teams. So that's how they separated that. And remember, you are stuck with your mother-in-law who you don't like, who don't like you. Y'all don't know each other, or like one couple, they were together for like 18 years. The mom still didn't like them. Another couple, there were two couples I think that lived with their moms. There was one couple that lived with their mom, but then she had of recent like moved out because of the drama that was going on in that house. Like it was quite interesting to be in these people's business to hear about what was going on in their families. But first of all, just the premise of the show, unique, new. I'd never heard anything of it. We see so many shows about I'm looking for the love of my life. Good luck. But this never would have thunk. And it makes perfect sense. So the cultural differences, the way the show was designed, there were so it was very creative, and I'm trying to think of if I want to like what. Okay, so I'll just jump to the part about the games, y'all. We could never. Americans could. The first of all, the games had mad fucking instructions. There were so many details. I'm watching the host, um, like explain the rules and the steps to the game. And I'm like, oh, she fucking lost me. Like, what? So, what comes first? What comes next? I'm hoping that they did better at explaining it to the people that were playing. But, like, the games weren't just like, I don't even know. I can't even think of games and reality shows. I feel like a lot of the shows I don't really watch, but just listening to I don't want to say convoluted, because it could just really be me and I'm not picking up, but everybody else seemed to understand. But there were so many steps, like there were a lot of steps. You got to do this, but then you got to do that. And then in order to complete it, this has to be here. And then you have to bring your flag there. And it was just lots of fucking steps. The games were hard for one. So they were competing. Another thing that I will say about watching international shows, now movies, I would never. But for this show, I was I went into it thinking that I was going to be doing a million other things while I had this show on, and then it drew me in, but I dubbed it. So it's in Portuguese. And instead of just reading the subtitles, or the captions, I decided to just dub it into English because, like I said, I intended to be on my phone or not necessarily have to pay attention because I wasn't going into it to be invested in this. I was just curious. This was for shits and gigs. Shit and gig on me. I was invested, and dubbing takes so much from you. I had such a difficult time following just who the characters were. Like, what were their names? Listening to like the voice over actors, I feel like a lot of the emotion was lost. Like you lose a lot. It just wasn't really there like I was expecting it to. So if you really want to absorb the content of a piece, I highly recommend that you watch it and listen to it in its original language and just throw the captions on. I personally can't watch TV without captions anymore. It just doesn't hit the same. Like I can go to a movie theater, I can sit through a movie without the captions, but I much more prefer the captions. The captions are always on in our house. But international stuff. And I don't know if y'all remember, I started watching some shows a couple, maybe like a year ago. This was episodes ago, where I said I was watching like The Taylor, some island show that was pretty decent. Like I had watched a couple of scripted shows, and those I didn't dub. I actually watched those in their native tongue and just read the captions. That I'm so glad I did. I enjoyed those shows much more. Actually, I do have to go back to finish The Taylor, but I enjoyed those shows much better. I see the difference. there is a difference. If you're going to dub it, just know that you are absolutely missing out. It was very difficult for me to follow along with who the characters were for some reason. I don't know if it was because I knew the voices were actors. And I was also curious at a certain point. And it was also like some things just didn't land, right? And I don't know if that was just like a cultural difference. I'll get to one of the cultural, I won't say missteps, but like one of the points of contention for me, the viewer, in terms of like, what are they getting so excited? Well, actually, there were two times that happened where it was just like, well, what are they getting excited about? But it felt more difficult to follow in English, also, if that makes sense. Um, and I don't know if that was just editing, whereas like there were little pieces that I may have missed. I don't know if this is like Big Brother, where there is also like a live feed, but I didn't get that sense. And I feel like y'all would want to, what do you call it? Promote that. Like if there is a feed or if there is something else, you would think that the producers would want to drive eyes to that. So I'm going to make the assumption that there wasn't and that it was just me not picking up on some things. Um, but the dubbing makes a difference. Don't do it if you care. Uh, Blind Final Cast. Oh yeah. So and I was saying I put a note here that I think I was able to keep up with the Love Is Blind final cast. So like it shouldn't be that hard. Like there were, I feel like, roughly the same number of people. There were about 18 people. Again, six couples, um, and their moms. And then the other shows that I've watched, I'm like, I've absolutely kept up with who is who and what their backstories were. And in this instance, the backstory was there because I could see who you were. But yeah, hard. Um, okay, so one of the things that it could be a culture thing or it could have just been this one person in particular. There were certain conversations that were had. They also had I think she was like a relationship therapist, but like not relationship in terms of just like romantic relationships. Like your relationship with your mom is a relationship as well, guys. So interpersonal relationships. There was a therapist. I don't know exactly what her title is. Pardon. But she was there to facilitate a few of the conversations. And one of the activities was where the child and the in-law have to kind of explain what their beefs are. Like one, the child has to, I think, what was it? It was a word or something that the mom had said to them that hurt them. And so there was one interaction with, it was a daughter-in-law and the mother. And in reading what she was saying, like one of the things that she said was, you talk too much. Like it's just always like you're always saying something. And the mother was just like, we don't even talk that often. And she was just like, we can speak once in 3 months and it's too much. Um, and I'm like, okay, heard you. I get it. Like, and seeing the mother's character, like the way she was behaving on the show, was just like, okay, I could see this. I could see like this woman being somebody that I don't necessarily want to talk to. And the way she was treating this girl, it was just like, I personally think she's a witch. Like the mother was, in what was shown, we actually, one of the things was we see how they got there. We see, let me run it back. So one of the really, really genius things that they did on this show was the child didn't necessarily just disappear. Like they weren't just completely out of the game. They were separate from the game. So those six kids were basically shielded in like a bunker. They were taken from the island where they left their spouse and their mom, and they were brought to like another side of the island. The spouses and the moms didn't know that the kid was still on the island. They had like video, like a video feed that would pop on every once in a while with audio and all that stuff. And they would get like radio announcements from the host, like kind of giving them updates and talking to them about what was going on and all that stuff. And they actively received honeycombs, if you will, to signify like their points and the point system that was going on. So the kids are in this bunker watching their mom and their spouse have to compete and do all of the tasks and the games, and then just like interpersonally how they're clashing, or how they're responding to the other couples that are on the island. And the way it was designed was for that person to see how they are so very much so complicit in the disconnect in their parent and their spouse's relationship. So they were able to see, damn, yeah, so this is really hard. I don't want to hurt her, and I don't want to hurt my mom, and I don't want to hurt my wife. I don't want to hurt my mom. There was one dude, the woman that I was saying that talks too much. He had lied to the both of them. Essentially, he had told his wife that this was his house. He was buying it on his own. But his mom actually put everything she had. She sold land that she inherited from her father on the beach to put like 20% down payment on this house for her son. Like, she was helping her son out. And also, this is the house, it would appear, that she raised this boy in. So it's like they lived in this house prior, something, 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 finance, finance, finance. All of a sudden now he is buying the apartment. He puts in 80% of the money and the mom puts in the other 20%, but that other 20% was everything she had. So the wife and the mom are clashing heads because the wife is like, this is my house, you live here. And the mom is like, this is my house, you live here. And so the two of them were thinking that the other one was just being wild disrespectful. Turns out this nigga fucking lied. He didn't tell his wife that his mother had put so much into the house, that she put money into that house. The wife is also like an influencer. And so she ended up doing like a couple of brand deals and sponsorships and shit, and put like blood equity, if you will, into this house in terms of the design. She did campaigns and got a lot of like, bathroom fixtures, kitchen fixtures, and all of that shit. So each of these women had, a stake in the home. However, the mom put the fucking finances to it, and she lived there prior. So he was able to see, through him being removed and only being able to watch, how it was so much of his responsibility to kind of groom or nurture the relationship, one of the other. Now, my favorite couple, my favorite family, of course, were the Black family. So there were two Black families, but like one, I would say fully Black, where they were all identifiably Black. You Black like these, right? And then there was one family where it was a Black husband, a Black mom, and the wife looked like she may have been Afro-Latina. I don't know how she identifies. Very fair skin, but not white. She did not look white to me. So two Black families, and the rest of them were white. There was one gay couple, two men, and it was just like, first of all, the moms were adorable, and gave so much in different ways to the show. But seeing how that show was designed for everybody to get the best out of it. So it wasn't just like, oh, this is a game. You could see where it's like, yeah, this is a game, but it's also like a social experiment. And it's also like, best case scenario, a tool for growth. You've got the two that don't get along, and then you've got the one that you would think would be able to help facilitate everybody kind of having conversation and getting to a point where they can get along. But in different situations, through different lengths of time, different people have been together. Some of the couples lived with the moms, or the moms lived with the couples, or they had very, I won't say frequent relationships, where they had relationships where they were inclined to see each other a lot. And then you had one couple, the Black couple, where I think the couple met in November, and then by January, they was talking about getting married. And so the mother was just like, you you've never met you've never met me. No, I don't fuck with you. Like, you decide you want to marry my daughter, but you don't know who I am. You don't make it your business to come see me, no boo, nothing. And so when I tell you Shorty had it out for this man from jump, like, they had never met, and even without meeting, they had a shit relationship. So I feel like I don't even want to say they had the worst relationship, because I feel like I wouldn't necessarily, if I didn't know somebody and we didn't get along, cool. There was that one woman that was with her man for 18 years and the mother still didn't fucking like her. And I think, to me, that would be worse. Whereas you could, and I feel like they had 2 kids and the mother was just like, she ain't gonna be around for long. Bitch, what? That that would make me lose my shit. I could get not knowing me and then not liking me for whatever reason. Shit happens. But knowing me and you still think that your son don't take me serious, almost 20 years, that's a problem for me. So anyway, the show is very, very creatively designed. So you have the dynamic of those two that don't like each other, and then you have the dynamic of the other kid, just the outside looking in. It was insane. And so for me, back to the conversation between the daughter and the mother, where the daughter was saying that the mother talked too much. When I tell you she was in hysterics after that, like, maybe a third of like the next episode or the remainder of there was just such a substantial conversation about how that fucked her up. She was so hurt behind what she said. And for the life of me, I could not understand why she was so butthurt. And I was grateful for, like, the next episode. They did like a little, it seemed like a recap, or there at some point it was just like, did I miss something? Because again, I wasn't invested enough to like try to rewind and go back. Um, but they ended up talking about it at least once or twice again, and I'm like, okay, no, so I didn't mishear anything. She's just so hurt about saying that she talks too much. And I really think that is, I don't know that is a cultural difference or just a personal difference. Like, this one girl was really, really instilled with, like, don't disrespect your elders. I too was instilled with that, but I honestly, truly don't think that, I know I wouldn't feel bad if that's how I felt about this woman and the way this woman was treating her. I promise you I'd have been much nastier. I promise you I would have um, said something um, much worse than what she said. And when I say something much worse, I still don't even mean categorically disrespectful, because I don't even think telling somebody you talk too much, I don't like talking to you, I don't think that that's any, especially in the context of, we are supposed to be being honest here. This is supposed to be an activity that gets us, a therapy kind of thing, like, group therapy or like group coaching, or if you've ever sat in like an icebreaker setting, or just a group of people that you are trying to get to know. Sometimes they are encouraging you to tell each other how you feel about each other, whatever. I truly, truly did not get what broke this girl so much up about it. And that really had me wondering, what are the cultural norms about, I don't want to say like gender, not gender, but like, I also don't want to say geriatric, but about, I also don't want to say elders, but they're elders. But what are those cultural norms in Brazil for, is it that's your mother-in-law, so you felt so wild about it? Is it just because she was older than you that you felt so wild about saying what you said? Or is it something else? And for me, that was like really, really interesting. Another really, really interesting that came up was the conversation of race. Like I said, there was two, air quotes here, two Black families. And I only do the air quotes because I do not know how the wife in that second family identifies. But in the very black family, the mom accused one of the other housemates of being racist. And the way she did it was very authentic, if you will. She was having a separate conversation with one of the other contestants, and she was remarking on why she was upset about an interaction she'd had with another gentleman. So, two women speaking. It was a mom and a daughter, but it was not the mom and daughter in a familial unit. I really hope you guys are following me on this. Person A, person B, they are married. Person C is person A's mom. So person A is put in a bunker. Person B and person C, the mother and person A's spouse, are stuck together. So B and C. Are we following? I really hope this is making sense to y'all. I really encourage you to watch the show also. But so one of the moms was talking to one of the other daughters that were in not in the bunker, but in the compound of mother-in-laws and spouses. So this wasn't her daughter-in-law, somebody else's, but they were all together, separate from the children. The children remained away for over 80% of the show. She told this woman in confidence, "Hey, I think he's treating me this way because I am a black woman from the South and he is a white man from the Northeast." And she was just like, I feel, I'm trying to remember if she asked her not to say anything, but anyway, sure enough, soon as she leaves, this girl runs and goes to tell the rest of the group. She runs and tells the group. Of course, they're all up in arms. Oh my gosh, how could she say that? And I'm just like, why is that surprising? But okay. So then the son, her son-in-law, comes and is speaking to the group, the black man, that is actually on the compound. He comes and is talking to the group. And mind you, he's the one that and in this couple, these two, the mother and the son-in-law, they don't get along. This is the couple that they've never met, and she don't like him, he don't like her, because it's just been contention throughout the short relationship that he's had with his partner. So he goes back to the group and they're like, you know what your mother-in-law said? Now, mind you, he don't like her anyway. So, you know what your mother-in-law said? And blah, 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 blah. Yada, yada. Well, she said that so-and-so is a racist. And he's just like, well, I ain't got nothing to say about that. She got her own opinion. She's allowed to have her own opinions. And that was like, round of applause. Thank you. Because how dare y'all ask someone else to validate or invalidate someone else's stance on how they feel about how they are being treated by someone? Now, I think it is fair to ask maybe, what do you think? But the way they were saying it is like, this is inconceivable. She's fucking nuts. Waiting for him to be like, oh yeah, no, you all group of white folks could never be racist. Like, really? Y'all gonna ask the only black man in this place with y'all? Like, come on. That pissed me off bad. And that was like the beginning of something ain't sitting right. Turns out it's fucking illegal to be racist in Brazil. Like, literally. I looked it up because I couldn't understand. Again, cultural nuance, y'all. Culture. And that's another really interesting thing about watching shows from other places. As a black, my whole life, I get the microaggressions, right? You see it, you feel it, you hear it, all those things. And so I'm seeing it now happening to people from a different place. So one of the things about traveling as a black woman is, well, how do they care? How do they treat me there? When I'm going someplace, I always try to get reviews and recommendations from other Black women because that's how I experience the world and that's how the world interacts with me. So I would like to get um, information from people who I believe to are more likely to have a similar experience to me. And so, it was I don't want to say it was one set of feelings in the beginning, but like initially watching it, it was kind of like you view it as a Black American, right? And then a couple episodes, like, the episodes go through and then you're seeing how the interpersonal relationships, you're seeing how the people treat each other, you're seeing how they are together. Because remember, these people are home. It's not like they're in their house. This isn't that kind of reality show, right? So you're not going to see how people live in another country. It's still a fucking game. But you see how people act around each other. You see how they treat each other. You see what comes up. You see what doesn't come up. You see what's ignored. You see what's fostered. Like those kinds of things matter. Those things are interesting to me. So I'm watching and I'm like, yo, they really don't fuck with these people, the Black people. Like the rest of the house did not fuck with the Black couple. And it was a two Black moms and one Black son. The other Black mom had the daughter who, again, I don't know how she identifies. She looked like she could be Afro Latina. She did not look white. She was very, can't say it, right? Don't know. So there was Chiago, who was a Black man, Severina, who is his Black mother-in-law, and then Rodrigia. I'm probably not pronouncing her name correctly, but she is the very Black mom of a very Black man. But that other Black man was in the bunker because it was her son. And so Rodrigia was there with her daughter-in-law, who I don't know how she identifies, but she is, to me, not white. Very light, but not white. So, and Rodrigia didn't really have that much screen time. Well, she had screen time, but she didn't really talk as much as some of the other moms. But she did not share, if you will, in the same treatment as the other two Black characters that were, well, I don't want to say characters, but people who were who were on the compound, who were all sharing spaces together and competing in the games together. Everybody else fucking hated those two. Hated them. Like they tried with Chiago, the man. Like they tried to get along with him and he tried for a while. And after a while, you see that devolve. It just didn't last. And I could not, it just really got under my skin because I'm like, all right, her personality, I get. I get why Severina, the people don't like her. She's a very bombastic woman. She extra. But you would think that, she ain't the only extra one. And you would think that even in the downtime, you start speaking to people, you get to know them a little bit. She shared a little about herself and about why the fuck she was the way that she was and about the life that she had and the shit that she went through. And they sitting there, tearing up and crying and oh my God, oh my God. But then all of a sudden, you know, 2 hours later, it seems, or 2 hours in editing later, y'all don't fucking like her. And it just, something about it wasn't fucking sitting right. Like, my idea of what it should have looked like or what it felt like didn't necessarily match what was there. And it was another really interesting thing to watch play out until it got to that episode where the man that Severina had accused of being racist started discussing it with her. Like it came up later on. And this wasn't the first time it had come up after the fact. It came up a couple of times, actually. But in this conversation they had, he went in and he got so upset and he was just like, you know what that means. You don't play with that. You know that shit is prosecutable under law or something like that. And mind you, voice actors. And so basically he was saying like, I could get real fucked up behind that. And so I'm just like, oh, excuse me. Bitch, what? So, so you're telling me it's illegal to be racist in Brazil? That's gotta be impossible. That can't be the case, right? So I looked it up. Those are two of the descriptions. Of the three that I mentioned will be in the description box. So, good old Wikipedia. Actually, I don't even need the Wikipedia because your girl was reading. So, I want to say in the mid to late 80s, there was an end to military rule in Brazil, and it was a democratization, if you will, according to the Wikipedias. And in the 1988 Constitution of Brazil, which had very heavy public interjection, like the public was able to weigh heavily, and there were blacks rights organizations that also weighed heavily on the new constitution, and it was placed in the constitution that it is punishable by law to be racist. However, it was of course made very vague, like how that was to be punished or how that was to be. It's kind of like a he said, she said kind of thing. Like it has to be proven. Like you have to be able to prove that the aggressor is actively, I think, knowingly and deliberately being racist. Like you have to prove that they know what they're doing is racist to an extent. That's what it was giving in the description. But the shit is on the books. So knowing that after that little piece was revealed, it was kind of like, okay, I see why they don't fuck with her. I see why they don't fuck with someone that fucks with her. Because this has major implications for them. This isn't necessarily just about the game. They're like, yeah, we on TV here. Don't go putting this shit out here. Like, don't play with me like that. So with that piece of context, I can see why somebody may be very resistant to getting to that key place or the ha 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 ha, because I don't know if I trust you. I don't know what's going to happen when we leave here. I don't know what accusations or allegations you're going to bring up against me when this time ends. So that made some things make more sense. And again, that is me watching with my American eyes. There are little things that you don't even know you're not picking up on until you realize that you're 4 paces behind or you're 4 paces ahead. But either way, you're not walking together. So that was another really interesting thing about watching the show, is that there were so many cultural differences that you didn't necessarily know you were even witnessing or experiencing until like the aftermath, and you got to kind of see how they, you know, hashed certain things out to see, oh, I was wrong, or I didn't even see that coming. That was also very interesting about watching the show. Um, let's see, what else did I have in the notes? I still was caping for the Torinos. That's the black family. Okay. Oh, so the last thing that I wanted to mention is that there was a section of the show, and it's not like it's completely unique, if you will, but novel nonetheless. The moms, who were for the most part like in their 60s, it seemed like, I feel like that, let's just say the average age was like 62, right? They were talking about sex. I don't want to hear about sex from my mom, but I absolutely want to hear older women talk about sex. I'm going to be 40. I would, in my mind, I'm still fucking at 60. So it's nice to know that it's still happening. Like it's not like inconceivable. You know that it happens in your head, but at the same time, it's not like, 60 and 70-year-old women get like the best storylines in television and movies, right? It's just one of those things that gets every once in a while thrown in tongue in cheek, but then it's kind of like made a mockery of, or it's made like a big thing that, but they allowed these women to sit comfortably amongst themselves and talk about sex. One of the moms was like a newlywed, and she's like, "Yeah, I do it every day. We are constantly having the sex." And it was so cute to watch them say, "I'm a relatively private person, but they're the same age as me. Like, we're of the same demographic. We have the same concerns. We have the same insecurities. We have the same, issues. I can openly talk with them. I can openly discuss and converse with them because they understand me. They get it. The same stuff like the 20-year-olds are doing, we're doing. We're just not 20 anymore." And so it was like, round of applause for that. They didn't make it fucking weird. They didn't make, a big, they made a thing of it by, allowing, like, the couple of little testimonial, from the individual women talk about, yeah, like, we talk about sex, we have sex. It's not that big a deal. It was so nice for them to be so relaxed about it, for it not to feel forced, and for it to still also not be crass or weird or anything. It was just like, okay, so we didn't hear the 20, 30 somethings talking about sex at all, but the moms did. And I really, really appreciated that. So overall, y'all, 9 out of 10 would recommend. And I only give it a 9 because I cannot fairly say that I was able to experience and enjoy it 100% because I did not watch it in Portuguese. I dubbed it in English. And when I say I dubbed it in English, there were English speakers narrating the whole show. Like, it was, all I heard was English because, the voiceover actors, right? But absolutely love the show. And I highly encourage you guys to find different ways to travel, to find different ways to talk about travel, to find different ways to experience other places. Travel is so bomb, so beautiful, so inspiring, and it has so many different ways to change your life. But there are still ways on the table if you are only looking at it from one point of view. You don't necessarily have to go, be, or do anywhere, anything else to have travel conversations, but you don't have to have your same travel conversations. You can talk about the way people do things, the way they interact with each other, simply by talking about a television show that you picked up just because you were curious. So I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. And I hope you guys are also leaning more into different ways to have travel conversations. Lean into your curiosities, folks. Talk to you next week. Bye.